My name is Jessica Whitaker, and the night my life split in two started with a joke. When I was 18, my mom told her friends I was the family mistake. My dad laughed, pointed at me across the dining room, and said, "She's the 1%. Like I was some defective statistic, not his daughter. The table exploded in laughter. Champagne glasses clinked. Someone actually wiped a tear from their eye because they were laughing so hard. I stood there holding a tray of appetizers she'd shoved into my hands, dressed in a cheap dress I'd bought with my own paycheck, while they used me as their entertainment. I wasn't a guest at that party. I was the punchline. Nobody knew that 2 weeks earlier, I'd secretly checked my college fund account and found it empty. Nobody knew I'd overheard them saying, "Don't worry about her, she'll figure something out. She always does." That night, when my mom rolled her eyes and added, "We tried with her, but not everyone is born a winner," something inside me finally snapped. I didn't cry in front of them. I didn't scream. I just waited until the last car pulled away, slipped into my room, and packed a backpack with 3 t-shirts, a pair of work boots, and the $50 I had hidden in an envelope. I left my house at 1:17 a.m., walked past the manicured lawns and porch lights, and didn't look back. For 9 years, I stayed gone. I built a new life brick by brick, until the night someone pounded on my apartment door, and I heard the voices I swore I'd never hear again, cracking through the wood. "We need to talk. Open up, please." Before I tell you what they wanted and how I answered them, tell me in the comments, what time is it where you are, and what country are you watching from? I want to see how far this family mistake story travels. 9 years later, I wasn't the scared girl with a backpack anymore. I was 27, living in a small but solid 2-bedroom apartment on the industrial side of Houston, Texas. Instead of a college dorm, I'd moved into my life the hard way, through job sites, tool belts, and 5 a.m. alarms. I started as the kid nobody wanted on the crew, the girl who didn't look like she could carry a ladder, and worked my way up to a licensed electrician. While my parents used to brag about my brother's real future, I was the one wiring hospitals, schools, and office towers, watching entire buildings light up because I had done the math right. My days started before sunrise on dusty job sites and ended with night classes at the trade school downtown. I learned how to read blueprints, calculate loads, troubleshoot panels, and, more importantly, how to be the person other people relied on when everything went dark. Eventually, I earned my license and climbed higher, literally. I joined a commercial crew that handled high-rise projects. Hanging off the side of a 30-story building in a harness, sweating in a Texas summer, felt safer to me than my parents' living room ever had. By 25, I'd been promoted to lead electrician on smaller projects. By 26, I had a business partner, a quiet, sharp engineer who believed in me enough to start Whitaker and Cole Electrical Solutions. We specialized in complex, smart building systems, stuff that required brains and steady hands, not just brute force. We hired apprentices who reminded me of me at 18. Broke, underestimated, hungry. Twice a month, I volunteered at a community center, teaching basic electrical safety and home repair to teens who thought their only options were fast food or trouble. I told them what nobody ever told me, that learning a trade isn't a consolation prize. It's power, literally and figuratively. On paper, my life looked good. A growing company, a little money in savings, a beat-up truck that ran because I knew how to fix it myself. But there's something people don't tell you about getting away from a toxic family. Your body can leave long before your mind catches up. Some nights, even after a 12-hour shift, I'd lie awake in my dark bedroom, staring at the ceiling, hearing echoes of that party. Family mistake. 1%. It didn't matter how many buildings I wired or how many inspections I passed. A small, stubborn part of me still wondered if I was just faking it. If you've ever gone no contact and still heard your family's voice in your head, you know exactly what I mean. Things changed the day a thick folder landed on my desk. It was a bid package for a luxury townhome development in a suburb outside Houston. High ceilings, media rooms, home offices. The whole brochure looked like the life my parents used to worship. The subdivision name made my stomach dip. Willow Ridge Estates. I hadn't thought about that place in years, but one look at the site plan and my skin prickled. The main access road ran right past a cul-de-sac I knew better than any blueprint, the street I'd grown up on. For a minute, I just stared at the map, my pen frozen in my hand. I could practically see the exact route my 18-year-old self had walked that night, backpack digging into my shoulders while sprinklers ticked across perfect lawns. "You good?" my business partner asked, poking his head into my office. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just familiar area. We put together the bid anyway. Not because I wanted to go back, but because my company needed contracts like this to level up. When the developer accepted our proposal, I told myself it was just another project. Steel, conduit, schedules, numbers, not feelings. The first time I drove out there, I almost turned the truck around at the freeway exit. But I didn't. I drove through rows of half-framed townhomes until I reached the portable office trailer, signed in, and got to work. Later, while checking property records for load calculations, curiosity beat out fear. I typed in my parents' old address. What popped up wasn't what I expected. The house was still in their names, but barely. Multiple refinances, a second mortgage, a home equity line maxed out and delinquent, pages of liens. My chest tightened. Not with sympathy, but with a cold, sharp recognition. The same people who once told me, "We're not paying for trade school. You're supposed to aim higher," had squeezed every dollar of equity out of their house, and still hadn't reached out to me. Not to apologize, not to ask how I was, nothing. I dug deeper and found something that made my fingers tremble on the keyboard. A withdrawal slip from the year I turned 18, from the account labeled Jessica College Fund, the exact balance that had been mysteriously gone when I checked it. It was sitting there in black and white, with a note in the memo line, "Family emergency for R." My brother's initial. So it hadn't been a bank error. It hadn't been inflation or fees, like my dad had shrugged once. They had taken my future and turned it into his bailout. Driving back to Houston as the sun dropped behind the half-finished roofs, I realized something important. They hadn't just called me a mistake. They'd invested in that idea. They'd put money behind it. And now, the math was catching up to them. I told myself it didn't matter. I was done with them. They were just names on a property tax report. But late at night, when my phone buzzed with some random notification, my heart still jumped. I'd glance at the screen, half expecting to see a number I recognized. For 9 years, they'd stayed quiet. No calls, no emails, no, "We're proud of you." And then, one ordinary Wednesday, the quiet ended. The first sign was an email that landed in my company inbox. The subject line was just my full name, like a label, Jessica Whitaker. The sender was a generic address, nothing that screamed family, but the message hit me like a voltage surge. "Jessica, it's your mother. We found your business online. We need to talk. It's urgent." There was a phone number I hadn't seen in almost a decade. I stared at the screen long enough for the cursor to stop blinking. Then I did what 9 years ago me never would have believed. I archived the email without responding. That night, a voicemail appeared on my personal phone. Somehow, they'd gotten that number too. "Jess, it's Dad. I know you're mad. We deserve that. But please call us back. We need your help." His voice sounded older, thinner, with a rasp I didn't recognize. I listened once, deleted it, and went back to marking up drawings. Denial is powerful. You can convince yourself that if you don't answer, a problem doesn't exist. 2 days later, somebody leaned on my apartment doorbell hard enough to make the wiring hum. I was sitting on the couch with a plate of leftover takeout in my lap when the buzzer went off. Over and over, followed by heavy knocking. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Nobody ever just dropped by. My friends all texted first. My neighbors knocked like normal people. This pounding was desperate. "Jessica, we know you're in there." The voice sliced through the door. Hoarse, emotional, unmistakably my mother's. Another knock, then my father's voice, rough around the edges. "We need to talk. Open up. Please." The words from my own hook, the kind I'd only ever heard in my memories, were suddenly happening on my actual doorstep. I set my plate down with shaking hands and walked toward the door like I was walking toward a panel I wasn't sure was de-energized. I could see their shadows under the threshold. 2 shapes where there used to be 4. No brother. I flipped the deadbolt, cracked the door just enough to see their faces. The people standing there were not the glossy party hosts from 9 years ago. Time had been busy. My dad's hair was more gray than brown, his shoulders slumped like he was carrying invisible weight. My mom's makeup couldn't hide the deep lines etched around her mouth, or the way her eyes darted past me into the apartment like she was checking if success had a smell. "Hi," I said, my voice flat. No hug, no tears. Just that one word. My mom's lip trembled. "Jess, you look different." "That's what happens when you grow up," I answered. "What do you want?" My dad cleared his throat, glanced at the security camera above my door, and dropped his voice. "Can we come in? Please. This isn't something we can talk about out here." Every survival instinct in me screamed no. Every muscle remembered being 18 and having zero power in front of these 2 people. But I wasn't 18 anymore. This was my home, my rules, my life. I stepped back just far enough to make it clear. They were entering my space on my terms. 10 minutes, I said, and you don't touch anything." They nodded like defendants walking into a courtroom, and for the first time in my life, I realized I was the one holding the gavel. They sat at my small kitchen table like it was an interrogation room. No fancy centerpiece, no catered food, just a chipped mug of water and a stack of folders I'd pulled from my bag the second I'd decided to let them in. For a minute, nobody spoke. My mom's eyes roamed over the apartment, the work boots by the door, the framed electrician's license on the wall, the stack of code books on the counter. "So this is where you've been," she said, like she was assessing a hotel room she didn't really like. "Working with wires." The old sneer was still there, softer but familiar. My dad shot her a look and jumped in. "Jessica, we're not here to judge your choices. We're here because we need your help." I leaned back in my chair. "You've had 9 years to need my help. You didn't call when I was sleeping in a borrowed truck. You didn't call when I was working 16-hour shifts and eating gas station sandwiches. Why now?" My dad exhaled, shoulders sagging. "Because things have gotten bad. The house—" "I've seen the liens," I cut in. Both their heads snapped toward me. I tapped the folder in front of me. Public records, multiple refinances, second mortgage, HELOC. You squeezed every dime out of that place. That was your choice. My mom bristled. "We had to help your brother. His business—" "You mean the business you emptied my college fund for?" I slid a printed copy of the withdrawal slip across the table. Her foundation couldn't hide the way her face went pale. "You were never supposed to see that," she whispered. "Exactly," I said. "You called me a family mistake in front of an entire room of people, and then quietly cashed out my future to cover for the real hope of the family. And now you're here. So let's skip to the part where you tell me what you want." My dad swallowed hard. The bank is calling the note. We're behind on everything. If we lose the house, we lose everything. Your mother's reputation at church, my standing with clients, our retirement. We just need someone with good credit and a stable income to co-sign a restructuring loan. You have a business now. They said if you sign, we can save the house. The audacity would have been funny if it hadn't been so familiar. So, let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want me, the family mistake, to legally tie myself to the debt you created, to save the house you stole my college fund to protect, after ignoring me for almost a decade? My mom's eyes filled with tears. We know we hurt you. We were under so much pressure back then. Your brother needed us. We didn't think you'd actually leave. We thought you'd get over it. That's the problem, I said, my voice low. You never thought. You never respected me enough to imagine I might choose myself. I could feel anger vibrating under my skin, but I kept my tone steady. Years of dealing with dangerous voltage had taught me how to keep my hands calm even when my heart was racing. I built this life without you. Every license, every contract, every dollar. I earned it without your help. You didn't just fail me. You actively sabotaged me and then laughed about it. My dad leaned forward, desperation edging his voice. We're apologizing now. Doesn't that count for something? I held his gaze. An apology is words. Consequences are actions. You came here because you're scared of losing your house, not because you suddenly realized I deserved better. Silence settled heavy between us. Outside, a truck rumbled past. Someone upstairs slammed a door. In my kitchen, time felt like it had thickened. Here's what I'm willing to do, I said finally. I'll go with you to the bank meeting. I'll listen. I'll ask questions. But I'm not promising to sign anything. And before that happens, before any grown-up decisions about debt or houses or futures, you're going to sit there and listen to what it actually cost me to walk out of your front door with $50 and a backpack. No interrupting. No, we did our best. Just listening. If you can't handle that, you can leave now and take your foreclosure with you. My mom opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. For the first time in my life, she looked genuinely unsure of herself. Fine, she said quietly. Talk. So I did. I told them about the nights I slept in a coworker's truck because I couldn't afford both rent and gas. About getting shocked on a job site because an older guy forgot to lock out a breaker and thought it was funny to watch the girl flinch. About studying by the light of a headlamp because the power in my room had been cut off 3 times in 1 year. I watched their faces as they heard for the first time what their joke at that party had set in motion. When I finished, my mom wiped her eyes. We were wrong, she said hoarsely. We were cruel. I wish we could take it back. I believed that she wished it. I didn't believe she wanted to change enough to put action behind it. You might actually get the chance, I said, but not in the way you think. After they left, my apartment felt too quiet. I texted the one person who'd earned front row seats to my mess. Maya, I need you, I wrote. It's about my parents. 20 minutes later, my best friend was on my couch in leggings and an oversized hoodie, a pint of ice cream in one hand and a legal pad in the other. Okay, she said, clicking a pen. Tell me everything. And yes, I brought snacks and paper. We're not going into this unprepared. I walked her through the emails, the voicemail, the kitchen showdown, the bank request. She listened, eyebrows knitting tighter with each detail. So they want you to strap your healthy credit to their sinking ship, she summarized. Classic. They're my parents, I said, hating how small my voice sounded. Part of me feels like I should help. Another part wants to watch the bank take the house and mail them a good luck card. Maya tilted her head. What do you actually want, Jess? Not what a good daughter is supposed to do. You. The question sat between us like an exposed wire. I thought of that 18-year-old girl at the party, wrists aching from carrying trays while everyone laughed. I thought of the teens at the community center, scribbling notes while I taught them how not to burn their houses down, replacing outlets. I thought of how many times I'd told other people, "You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm." I want them to feel what I felt, I admitted. Not physically. I don't want them hurt. I want them to finally understand that you can lose people, that actions have consequences, that you can't gamble with your kids' lives and then expect a bailout. Maya nodded slowly. So, you don't actually want revenge. You want accountability. And boundaries, I said. And for once, I want the math to add up. She tapped the pen against the legal pad. Then you're going to need more than emotions. You need information. You need another witness. Have you talked to your brother? The question punched the air out of my lungs. We haven't really spoken in years. Last I heard, his business folded. They never said that part out loud, but I saw a filing online. I figured they'd protect him until the end. Find him, Maya said simply. If you're going to break a cycle, it helps to know how deep it runs. That night, I dug through old messages until I found a number labeled, "Ryan, don't answer." My thumb hovered over the call button. Then I pressed it. He picked up on the second ring. "Hello?" His voice was deeper, slower. For a second, neither of us spoke. "It's Jess," I said. "I heard Mom and Dad are in trouble." A long exhale crackled through the speaker. "Yeah," he said finally. "They are. And I think it's about time someone other than me told them no." We met in a cheap diner off the highway, the kind with sticky menus and bottomless coffee. Ryan walked in wearing a worn button-down and tired eyes. He slid into the booth across from me and didn't bother with small talk. "They took your college fund," he said quietly. "I begged them not to. They did it anyway. They told me you'd never use it, that you'd probably drop out or get married before you finished. When you left, they told everyone you ran off with some guy and that they were heartbroken." My stomach turned. "They told people I abandoned them?" He nodded. "They played the victim hard. Church, neighbors, Dad's clients. It got them sympathy. And money." He pulled his phone from his pocket and slid it across the table. Screenshots, emails, a half-completed online credit card application in my name from years ago, stopped only because the system flagged the address mismatch. "They tried to open credit in your name too," he said. "When it didn't work, they complained about how ungrateful you were for leaving them with all the responsibility." Heat flared behind my eyes. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. Ryan watched me, then sighed. "I'm not here to defend them. I enabled a lot of it. I believed the golden child story for too long, but when my business failed and they started talking about refinancing the house again, I realized something. They don't care who drowns as long as the image survives." He leaned forward, voice dropping. "If you co-sign that loan, they will drag you down with them, and they will still talk about you like you're the problem." "So what do we do?" I asked. For the first time since they'd shown up at my door, I said we. Ryan's answer was simple. We stopped playing by their rules. By the time the coffee was gone, we had a plan. Not to humiliate them at church or blast them online. That's not my style. Our plan was quieter, sharper. We'd go to the bank meeting together. We'd listen. And then, in front of a neutral third party who cared only about facts and signatures, we'd tell the truth. About the college fund, the credit attempts, the lies they'd told to protect their image, and we'd both refuse to sign anything. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. Actions, consequences. For once, the equation would be honest. The bank meeting was held in a conference room with bad fluorescent lighting and a view of the parking lot. My parents sat on one side of the long table, clutching a neat stack of papers in each other's hands. Ryan and I sat on the other, separated from them by a legal pad, a glass of water, and 9 very loud years. The loan officer, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a sharper suit than the room deserved, clicked her pen and got straight to it. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, we've reviewed your application. As we discussed on the phone, your income-to-debt ratio is challenging. Bringing your daughter in as a cosigner could improve your chances, but I'll need her consent. Today is about making sure everyone understands the risks. My dad smiled at me, the same smile he used to give his clients. We do. Jessica understands we're family, and family helps each other. I met his gaze. Actually, that's what we're here to talk about. For the next 10 minutes, the loan officer walked us through the numbers, missed payments, ballooning interest, the timeline for foreclosure if the loan wasn't approved. My mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue, glancing at the officer every few seconds to make sure the tears were being noticed. When the woman finally turned to me and said, "So Jessica, are you prepared to take legal responsibility if your parents default?" The room went quiet enough to hear the hum of the exit sign. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I opened a folder and slid a photocopy across the table. Before I answer that, I think there's some context missing. On top of the stack was the withdrawal slip from my college fund. Underneath were the property records showing each refinance. Behind that, a printout of the attempted credit card application in my name. When I was 18, my parents emptied my college account without telling me, I said, my voice steady. They used it to cover my brother's failed business debts. When I left home after being publicly humiliated, they told people I ran off and painted themselves as the victims. Years later, they tried to open credit in my name without my consent. They have not contacted me at any point to make amends until they needed someone with a good credit score to save this house. The loan officer's brows shot up. She scanned the papers, professionalism battling with disbelief. "Is this accurate?" she asked my parents. My mom sputtered. Those were family decisions. We did what we had to do. She's twisting things to make us look bad." "Why would she do that?" Ryan interjected quietly. All eyes swung to him. "I was there," he said. "They did take her college fund. They did try to open accounts in her name. They did tell everyone she abandoned them. And now they're asking her to fix the mess. I'm their son, and I won't sign either." My dad's face reddened. "You too?" he snapped. "Huh? After everything we've done for you?" Ryan's jaw tightened. "That's the point, Dad. Everything you did was about optics, not about us as people. You didn't invest in us. You invested in your image." The loan officer cleared her throat. "I can't speak to your family dynamics," she said, "but from a risk perspective, it's my job to make sure Ms. Whitaker understands that co-signing puts her assets and credit at stake if you default. Given what I've just heard, I would advise any client in her position to proceed with extreme caution." My mom turned to me, mascara streaking. "Jessica, please. If we lose the house, I'll be humiliated. People will talk. I'll have to face everyone at church. We'll have to move into some apartment. We're too old to start over." There it was. Not, "We're sorry for what we did to you." Not, "We want to make things right." Just, "I'll be humiliated." I thought of 18-year-old me, standing in that living room while they laughed and called me a mistake. I thought of sleeping in a truck, of failed inspections and long days and the first time a building passed, because I'd done it right. "You're not too old to start over," I said quietly. "You're too used to never being told no." My dad slammed his hand on the table. "You're really going to let your parents end up on the street?" "No," I said. "I'm going to let you end up wherever your choices take you. There's a difference." I turned to the loan officer. "I will not be co-signing." The woman nodded, unfazed. "Understood. Without a cosigner and given your current financials, I'm afraid we'll have to deny the restructuring loan. I can, however, connect you with a financial counselor who can help you plan next steps." My mom let out a small, shocked sound, like she'd just been slapped by the universe itself. "You can't do this," she whispered. "We're your parents." For the first time, I didn't feel guilt at those words. I felt clarity. Being my parents was supposed to mean protecting me, not selling my future to the highest bidder, I said. "You taught me that family can be the people who hurt you the most. I had to go out and learn that family can also be the people you choose, the ones who show up without asking what they get out of it." I stood, gathering my papers. "I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing this because I spent 9 years cleaning up the mess you made of my life, and I won't let you make another one in my name." Ryan stood with me. "I'll help you move," he told them. "I'll be there when the house goes. But I won't be your shield anymore." We walked out together, leaving them in a room full of consequences. Epilogue. Months later, I drove past Willow Ridge Estates on my way to a site meeting. The old house was gone from my parents' names, sold at auction to a quiet couple who put potted plants on the porch instead of pride. My parents ended up in a modest apartment across town. They did have to face people at church. They did have to deal with whispers. My dad had a minor health scare that finally pushed him into therapy. My mom joined him begrudgingly and, according to Ryan, spent several sessions blaming everyone else before cracking. I didn't show up to any of it. That was their work to do. Mine was different. I kept running my company. I expanded our apprenticeship program and pushed for scholarships in my trade school's name, funded, ironically, by the profits from the very development that had brought me back into their orbit. We named one of the scholarships the 1% Fund, but not for failure, for the 1% of kids who are brave enough to break their family's patterns. In the application essay, we ask one question. Tell us about a moment when someone underestimated you and what you chose to do next. Here's the part I wish someone had told 18-year-old me, and maybe the part you need to hear. Being born into a family doesn't mean you owe them your sanity, your savings, or your second chances. Love without respect is just control in nicer packaging. You're allowed to set boundaries, even if people call you selfish. You're allowed to say no, even if their voices shake. You're allowed to build a life where your worth isn't measured by how much pain you're willing to absorb. If you grew up being treated like the family mistake, you are not alone, and you are not a mistake. You're evidence that the pattern can break with you. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments, what's one boundary you wish you'd learned to set sooner? Your story might be the thing someone else needs to finally walk out the door and choose themselves. From my point of view, this isn't a story about being cold to your parents. It's about finally understanding the difference between love and obligation. Jessica didn't ruin her family. Her parents did that when they chose image and favoritism over fairness and honesty. Walking away from a toxic pattern and refusing to co-sign their debts wasn't revenge for the sake of drama. It was self-protection and self-respect. She proved that breaking the cycle can be the most powerful payback of all. If you were in Jessica's place, would you sign to help your parents keep the house? Or would you say no like she did? And why?